Welcome to the quietest ones in the room with your host, Trey. I gotta say it, just the mere fact that you clicked onto this video and you're listening to the sound of my voice, you by far are the most intelligent people on the face of the planet. So once again, thank you. I hope you're enjoying your day. I hope that it's going much better than mine. As of right now, I am suffering from allergies. Yes, allergies suck. If you experience them, you know the horror that you experience when spring comes around and the pollen is in the air with the dry atmosphere as well from the humidity. It's just, I've been suffering. My left eye, I can actually barely see out of it. It's super red. And so I'm a little jacked up, but I couldn't resist coming back to you guys and talking to you about what is going on in the world as of now, and in particular, the clown of the day. We got to talk about it. So the clown of the day, as you probably saw in the thumbnail, maybe you knew who that person was, maybe not. But that individual, this individual goes by the name of Doug Ford, and Doug Ford is the premier of Ontario. And so essentially, I didn't know about Doug Ford until recently. I'm going to be honest. I don't pay much attention to Ontario politics at all. But now that this trade war has commenced between the United States and Canada, Premier Doug Ford has been all over the news, and slowly but surely, he's been gaining traction by being Donald Trump light. He's essentially like, he's talking as if he's Trump in Ontario. So just imagine Trump running Ontario. This is how Doug Ford comes off to me. But he's doing it from a position of weakness, in my perspective. And so what's going on now is, now that the tariffs by the Trump administration have been implemented, and we know how that all worked out. It was a threat, and the tariffs were implemented, but then pulled back because Canada and Mexico had agreed to strengthen the border, made some additional agreements. But then as time passed on, the Trump administration decided to move forward with the tariffs anyhow, 25% to be exact, on Canada and Mexico. But interestingly enough, we're seeing more of the tension from our northern border at this point, rather than the southern border as it pertains to tariffs. So now that these tariffs have been implemented, Doug Ford is now coming out, and he's decided that he's actually going to implement a 25% surcharge on electricity for the states, which are New York, Michigan, and Minnesota. Now, these states would be directly affected by the 25% surcharge of electricity resources that come out of Ontario. Now, for those who don't know, these three states obviously already have their resources, but the grid is tied into Ontario's grid system, their hydroelectric grid system. And whenever there's a shortage, whenever there's a high demand, maybe during the summer or the winter, these states, if it's necessary, they'll generate power out of that Canadian grid that they're tied into. Okay, so Doug Ford is alleging that, because of this, individuals and the residents in these states may experience maybe $100 increase on their bills. Who knows? We don't know what the bills are going to look like. And maybe that is a part of why Doug Ford's perspective on it is short-sighted, because obviously the Trump administration could do things like subsidies, where the electricity companies in America are able to reduce their prices to to balance the fact that the Canada prices may be slightly higher versus domestic. And because of that, that could actually make Doug Ford surcharges less effective. So things like subsidies could certainly take effect. Trump throws out things like checks being sent to people. So checks could be sent to the residents in those states. There's so many things that could actually happen from our side in America to alleviate the stress that some of the residents in those states may experience if it comes to bills being outrageously high. But we knew and understood that it's a part of a tariff war, that your prices are going to be more expensive. And so if we understand that these three states will be feeling the effects of the tariffs, we obviously understand that Canadians will also be experiencing the effects of our tariffs. And so everyone's prices are going up. And we talked about this already, that it's a game where the American people can certainly outlast the Canadians in terms of a tariff war and paying prices that are higher than typical. The American populace can definitely handle it longer than the Canadians can. And now I'm starting to see Canadian business leaders, others in their government, the citizens actually speaking against their government's tactics in terms of retaliatory tactics against the Trump administration, stating Canada's actually going to come out of this battle feeling more pain and experiencing more decline than America would. And I completely agree with it. Like, who doesn't understand that Canada loses in this situation? I mean, Doug Ford, the way he's talking and the statements he's made is that Canada will come out of this trade war victorious. Now, he's a politician. He can paint things in every way he'd like to. It's part of politics. But the citizens are the ones that are going to feel the pain of the price differences, the inflation, which has already been an issue in Canada, and now it's just going to get worse. And we understand we have inflation in America as well, but the amount of money that people have here to weather this storm is far more than what many of the Canadians would be able to do during this time period. I personally don't think that this trade war will last too much longer. I think that Doug Ford, as well as many of the premiers in Canada, should caravan to Washington, D.C. and sit down at the table. It's not far. Everybody get in a bus and come. The new prime minister, all of you, just get in a bus, drive through New York, come on down to Washington, D.C., sit with Trump and Vance, and say things like thank you and how much you appreciate the Trump administration, and work out a deal. Don't pull a Zelensky here. Zelensky embarrassed himself, and then he got back to Ukraine, and now he's apologizing for his remarks. Don't embarrass yourself. You guys know who the big dog is. It's America. You guys know America's the big dog. Come on. And I know many of the citizens in this country are currently upset with the Trump administration. But I also know deep down inside you have a little bit of something in you that says, no, I don't want to lose to Canada in any sense, whether it's basketball, whether it's pickleball, whether it's ping pong, it doesn't matter. You don't want to lose a trade war either. And I know you get upset and you're thinking to yourself, this is so wrong and something needs to be done about it because Trump's Hitler and he's a dictator and he's a bully, etc. Yeah, you say all that, but then I know deep down inside, you don't want to come out short. You don't want to come out with the worst end of the deal as it pertains to trading agreements. I know that you want your products to be cheaper. I know that you want your gas to be cheaper. I know that you want your clothes to be cheaper, your cars, the housing materials, therefore your houses. You want all these things to be cheaper. And what it requires is better agreements with other nations that import products into the United States of America. So you can get all up in arms all you want about how this is wrong and that is wrong. But if you're asking for your prices to go down, there are tactics that have to be implemented, things that have to be implemented in order for it to be so. So I'm not here to say what any administration is doing is 100% correct and should be done this way. But what I am saying is when I watch things like CNN, or even if I'm on Fox News and I see people on these platforms almost give an air that they're excited that Canada is fighting against America, that they're willing to shut off the power to New York City, Michigan, Minnesota. It's like nobody should be excited about that. But we don't want to lose though. Right? We don't want to lose. Nobody should be excited about it, but we don't want to lose. And I think a tactic like threatening to cut off power in New York City, Michigan, and Minnesota, it's just a bad play by the premier, Doug Ford. It's a horrible threat. It could backfire in so many ways that I know he hasn't even thought long term about. And this is the time when I understand, like a lot of times when you're at war, sometimes it's best to say less, right? It's best to say less things than to say more. I think he said too much. He said too much. And I think because of that, there might be some backlash for him long term because of that as a politician. But nonetheless, hey, Canada, get all of your leadership in a 30-passenger bus, have them drive down, enjoy the views as they drive down to Washington, D.C. They don't have to get on a plane, just drive down on a bus. They can get on Greyhound, get on a bus again and come to D.C. and sit at the table and negotiate behind closed doors. Stop with this phone calling and trying to do things on Zoom. Look, we're back to in office. Do it in the Oval Office behind closed doors and get it done. Stop playing games with your people in Canada and negotiate. Do not follow the steps. Do not follow in the footsteps of the now gone blackface Justin Trudeau. Do not follow and fall into the pattern that he set up where he put you guys in a bad position, and now here we are in 2025 in a trade war. Do not fall for it. Please get on a bus and negotiate in person with the Trump administration. So anyway, maybe you support Canada during this process because you are Canadian or because you're a U.S. citizen who cares more about international countries versus your own. I don't know. But what I will say is, I'm not here to judge all of that. All I want to say is, it's not going to be as difficult as the media would have you believe it will be as this trade war continues. You'll be just fine. You'll be able to buy other things. It's okay. You'll be fine. But anyway, please share your thoughts in the comment section. Like, subscribe, share. As always, guys, I appreciate you. And until next time.